So I'm here with Walt Hastings. Walt is one of the cohort coaches. Actually, Walt and Hobby are coaching two cohorts. Walt is working with the African cohort, which we'll probably hear more about in the future. But Walt is an experienced coach. And would you share just a little bit about your background and training with coaching?
Okay. Well, I was a pastor for 35 years, and toward the end of that, I became a church consultant. I took a good bit of training on how to be a helpful person in that context. And what I found was I had to invest lengthy hours into doing analyzing, interviewing. I would come up with a very long report where I would analyze the problems and make recommendations, and then I would submit the report and my bill, and typically 2 years later I would go back to the church and find that the report was still sitting on the shelf gathering dust.
Hadn't changed anything.
And they had not taken any of my suggestions. And then about 11 years ago, I went to a coaching workshop led by Bob Logan. He had been real influential in some of my training for consulting.
He was a well-known kind of coach trainer, kind of got written books on it and all. Yeah.
Right. And so he introduced the concept of coaching. And so 11 years ago, I switched from being a consultant to being a coach.
Wow.
And I found much, much better results, mostly because in coaching, I help the leaders come up with their own analysis of the problems and come up with their own solutions, so they own the solution and they follow through. And so I find much better results with coaching rather than consulting.
Wow, that's great. Okay. So talk about what is coaching? How would you define it, describe it?
Coaching is simply coming alongside another person to help that person succeed. And Christian coaching is helping that person discover what God is asking them to do, and then helping them figure out the steps they need to take to accomplish that God-given vision.
And somebody, I think it's Tony Stoltzfus, who said that information isn't all that transformational. I mean, we need to know more for sure, but motivation is the key. So as a coach, my understanding is that you're really looking for where's a person already motivated? What do they want to accomplish? Talk about that information motivation thing a little bit.
Well, there are certain resources that every person needs and probably is lacking. So one of the aspects of coaching is to help them figure out where to find the missing information, the missing skills, the missing tools. The motivation comes from helping them understand where their heart is, what their passions are. And usually I have no trouble motivating people when I tap into their passions.
Okay. And you've had a lot of experience. I think you told me you've done like 4,000 hours of coaching. And so what are some of the tips that you'd have for the rest of us as we're beginning to learn how to coach? What are some things that you've learned that we could benefit from?
Well, it's helpful to understand coaching in a nutshell. Coaching really can be boiled down to three questions. First, where are you now? Secondly, where do you want to go? Thirdly, how are you going to get there? Now, in Christian coaching, we add the dimension of where does God want you to go? And what are the steps you think the Holy Spirit is leading you to take? And so in Christian coaching, it's not just a person's best hopes and dreams, but ideally, what are the God-given hopes and dreams?
What are the sense of what God is saying to you, what He's putting in your heart? Okay.
Yes. So in a sense, a coach is cooperating with the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is the paraclete, or the one called alongside to help. And that's what a coach is. A coach is one called alongside to help.
We
And-
function in the same way the Holy Spirit does to some degree.
Yes, and in my coaching, I try to start every coaching session beforehand, reminding myself that I am the apprentice coach, the junior coach, and that the Holy Spirit
good.
is the real coach. And I'm simply trying to cooperate with Him in whatever He wants to accomplish in that person's life.
Excellent.